morning and welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Melissa Jacoby, your worship associate for this morning, and our service will be led by Brandon Steele. This service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel. We will plan on continuing with hybrid worship services throughout the church year, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later in YouTube as you prefer. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway, and whether it is your first visit or your 1,000th, we are glad that you came. We have a few announcements to share with you today. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. RE and childcare will be provided this morning by Laura Wink and Kaya Mells. We will be collecting the cards for Joys and Sorrows after our first hymn. Please fill them out or type into the chat box on Zoom if you have something you would like to share. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community?
Good morning. I'm Pat Mells from the Pledge Drive team. I just wanted to give a report on our Pledge Drive. The good news is our pledgers have pledged $70,000 for the upcoming church year. The somewhat, oh yes, that's very good, yeah. The somewhat challenging news is that we're still 3 fish short of a whole school. So that's $6,000. And I'd attribute that mainly to the fact that our number of pledging units has gone down. A few years ago, we had 42, 43 pledging units, and this year we have 35. So everybody's done a great job, and we'll be looking for creative ways to make more money. We are rich, as you can see. Look at the daffodils. And we have a new fundraising team. So if you're interested in being part of the fundraising team, or if we call on you, I hope you can help. That would be Karen, Kevin, Kaya, Abby, who's not here today, and myself. So I'm very optimistic about the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
So following up on fundraising, Nearly New Sale, it's coming up. We did change the date to May 20th, so you have an extra week to clean out your attics, garages, under your kitchen cabinets, any place else you can find. There are envelopes in the back by the bulletin board with the name tags. I did pass some of those out last week. People were a little bit apprehensive about pricing, so to make it very clear, I made it simple. There's 4 main price categories. You color code it accordingly. So just sort your goods into $1, $3, $5, $10. Put it in the box with your sticker on it. And there are a few specific price tags if you have higher dollar items that you want to add in. The only other couple of caveats here: we're not accepting clothing as a donation, and there will be a bake sale. So if you have nothing in your house, then we will accept baked goods. Lastly, there will be collection the Thursday and Friday prior, so both evening and daytime hours. So wait for announcements for that. Thank you.
I'd just like to make a quick announcement for this celebration of life for Harry Schwartzweiler. That's coming up April 22nd at Veterans Park in Bloomfield from 1 to 4 p.m. So those who knew the family and want to come out to support Harry and Liz, you're welcome to be there. So.
As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship.
Hard to believe, but in the early 1800s, daffodils were considered weeds until William Wordsworth penned his poem, Daffodils. I wandered, lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er dale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. But they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not be but gay in such jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth to me this show hath brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils.
I invite you to join with me in our chalice lighting words as the flame is lit. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. It's great to be here with you all. My name is Brandon Steele. I'm one of the volunteer members of the congregation here. And I'd like to tell just a little story to get us started today. As many of you know, I'm not originally from New York. I'm from Idaho. And being from that sort of place, I grew up farming. We did farm work. We developed a love for plants and gardening, and that's something that has stuck with me even moving out here. And we've got a lot of farming that happens here too, so I feel just at home when I came out here. So that's not the story. The story is about how I introduced some of these concepts to my children. My kids love sour things. They're the kind of kids that, you watch the video where someone feeds a newborn a slice of lemon and they make a face. My kids probably made the face, but they probably went back for another slice of lemon as well. They love Warheads and Sour Patch Kids. And so I think we were eating lemons or grapefruit, something pretty sour, and they see the seeds in there. And that's something that, they've heard that plants grow seeds. And so we decided to look it up. How can we grow a grapefruit from this seed? And so we got some nail clippers and clipped off the edge of it just to help it along its way. We put a little bit of moisture in a cloth and folded it, put away in the dark for a few weeks, and they were very excited about it. This was something where we just couldn't leave them alone. Sometimes you can love plants to death if you pay too much attention to them. So we tried to be patient, and before we knew it, the seeds were sprouting. And we have a little citrus plant growing right now in our house. Obviously it's got to come in the winter, but it's something that they're excited about, and I'm excited about it too. And that's really, I think, why we're here. We're here to learn together, to go on journeys together and develop each other's develop spiritually and explore what we want to become. And you know, life's a journey. So that's something that I think we can all take and grow from. With that, let's go to our opening hymn, 63.
Spring has now unwrapped the flowers, day is past reviving, life in all her growing powers, for the light is shining, come Lord, your clouds shall flow, winter time and frost time, stealing, burning through the hole, now may come for lost time. Bird and plant that winter long, songbird at their leisure, now be stirring green and strong, find in growth their pleasure. Oh, the world with beauty fills, golden green and dancing, flowers like glee among the hills, set the meadows dancing.
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows by writing them down on the card you found on your chair and placing it in the basket when it comes by you or typing in the chat box in Zoom. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you.
Now it's time for a story. It's plant related, as you probably guessed at this point. I love exotic plants, things that you probably wouldn't expect to see in this region. I take time figuring out what will grow. There's a lot of science to it. You want to make sure the soil is right, that the low temperatures of the season aren't going to kill off these plants that we want to grow. Something that I enjoy is kiwis, and so I thought, you know, we should find a way to make this work. And there's actually a variety of kiwi, the hardy kiwi, that can grow in western New York here. It's something that at first it takes a little bit to get it to go, but it's survived the last 2 years at my house. It's a vine. The kiwis are about the size of grapes, though. You're not going to get something like what you'd see at the store. When I first got these kiwi plants, I mail ordered them in. You can't just go to the gardening center and find these plants. They had gotten frosted in the mail, and I was so disappointed to open up this box that I had just waited excitedly for, and to see all these brown wilted leaves. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, so I put them on a little heating mat and put a grow light on top of them, and I babied them along, and before you know it, something that just looked like it had died started to come back. These plants are resilient, and that's something that I was just so excited to see as all that work and time and research started to feel like it was bearing fruit. Now, I haven't gotten any kiwis from these yet. It takes a few years, 7 or 8. But I'm excited to see what the future holds. One of the things that I love about gardening is trying different things and seeing what works and feeling that excitement, that rush, as we see that the earth is giving back to us. Some of the things that, after working hard, you're rewarded. And that's the end of the story.
We have all joys today, which is something to be joyous about in itself. We have Pat, Kaya, and Bill Mells, a joy that their daughter-in-law, Kamal, is doing better and is looking forward to coming home from the hospital today. And a joy from Bill that the life of Ryan McNeilis, a student and musician friend who lost his battle with addiction this week. Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church and this work. Each week, we would like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. This week, we would like to thank Lynn Cronies and others for taking care of the gardens. People interested in finding out more or volunteering can contact Lynn. 1/4 of our plate collection for the muddy season goes to Called to Care, Canandaigua, an organization working toward the goal of welcoming refugees into our community. You can give this to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket or by one of the options on your screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. Oh.
And at this time, if there are any children who are ready for RE, then Laura and Kaya will meet you downstairs, and we'll sing you off. Go now in peace, go now in peace, may the love of all surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
At this time, I'll lead us in a meditation. You're welcome to get comfortable, feel your feet through the floor. This is the sensations from gardening. I feel the sun on my shoulders, the life of the earth. I breathe in the floral scents, taste their sweetness on the breeze. Imagine the colors of what has grown, flowers, fruits, vegetation of the earth in every shade. Yellow, red, orange, violet, green, and blue blending together. I feel the grass beneath as I walk, barefoot through a wonderland flush with green and warmth and life. I rejoice in that life, find meaning, find belonging, find peace. I'd like to start off by sharing a little bit about my gardening journey in my home. I've touched on a few of those stories, but as I was looking for a home after moving here, my wife and I decided we wanted to settle down. I think my father-in-law didn't want us living in the basement for too many years, so and we appreciate the generosity that he showed us. So we were looking for our own place, a place we could call home where we could raise our children, where they could run around. Luckily, we live on a dead-end street where we can tell them to go play in the road and feel comfortable with that. So in looking for the home, we found a place that was beautiful. The previous owners had clearly spent a lot of time landscaping. They had beautiful red rock with roses, lilac, lavender, flowers growing all in the front, and plenty of space, an acre to put a garden. There was no garden, but I was ready to put one in. With my history back in Idaho, I knew how to do that, right? And understandably, there were things that I was not prepared for. The soil type in Idaho is very different than what I found in my backyard. I remember the disappointment as I tried to take my shovel to turn the earth and found how heavy the clay was. I could make a little bowl out of this clay. It's very difficult to work and move. Even using a little rototiller that I bought, the rototiller would just bounce up and down off the ground. My forearms were getting a workout trying to dig it in there. And even after planting, I planted some of my favorite ones, little cherry tomatoes. They're so sweet. Potatoes, understandably, that's a holy vegetable in my book. But before long, we started to see some of the bugs that come along. The potato bugs were out. I remember spending hours of time with a little bowl of soapy water, picking each potato bug off and putting it in the soapy water, which worked. It's labor intensive. It takes a lot to handle that. Those potato bugs are prolific and they can repopulate quickly. So there was understandably some challenges, but there's some successes as well. I remember having so many cucumbers, we didn't know what to do with them all. Apparently cucumbers do well in clay soil, and the potato bugs left them alone. They were busy doing their own thing. My children, they painted little red rocks to keep the birds away from our strawberry plants. We read that somewhere, and it seemed to work okay. We've got a few strawberries that are left over, although the snails got to a lot of those as well. So, but one of the biggest challenges that I found in gardening was something that was, I considered it a weed. I know the previous neighbors considered it a beautiful plant because they definitely planted it where they put it. This was an ivy plant planted next to the home. And I've seen some of those beautiful old-style English homes and the ivy just crawls up the wall. My house is not like that. What this ivy would do is crawl up the water spout from the gutter. And so I would see at the top of the gutter this ivy plant sticking up at the top. The ivy crawled underneath my sidewalk, and so it's moved from one spot and it's coming up into the holly bush, sticking up like a little antenna looking for the sun's rays. My little lavender row, there's ivy sprigs popping up all along the row. And so this was a challenge for me. I've never encountered a plant like this before. And I put a lot of work into dealing with this ivy. I removed all the red rock. I took away the weed barrier, which was old at the time, and the ivy just grew right through it. I cut it down with a little hatchet or an axe. I pulled the little pieces. This was a test of perseverance. This is years of progress that I've put into trying to make this ivy go away. Eventually I got desperate and I used some herbicides. I know I feel like I need to repent or something after saying something like that. But this ivy was a problem. And luckily the herbicide did its job. They know how to mix those chemicals well, I suppose. So far, there's a little bit of ivy left. It still is popping up, and so I need to be on my guard. But it wasn't always easy taking care of this. There was days I remember coming home from work and seeing the ivy pop up 5 or 6 new little trailers, and thinking, you know what, I think the ivy's going to win today. And that's okay. It's not something where we have to accomplish it all in one day. We can work towards these goals a little bit at a time. Obviously gardening and weeding, it's not something that, this isn't just about weeding and gardening. This is about our communities, our country, our world that we live in. There's weeds that pop up sometimes that we don't always expect. I remember learning about the Civil War in school, how the Civil War was fought over slavery. And I'm sure at the time many people thought that we have taken a step forward. Things are better now. And then that was followed up by legislation that was rather aggressive, very regressive, Jim Crow laws, sharecropping, things that exploit minorities. And even today, black people in this country are disadvantaged in many ways because of that. 100 years after the Civil War, in the 60s and 70s, we had the civil rights movement. And at that time, I'm sure people thought, now we've done it right. We've pulled the weeds. But that's not necessarily the case. I remember being in Idaho, and Idaho is known for a few things outside of potatoes, and I'd see the rebel flag with the cross and the stars. It's disappointing to see that. Idaho wasn't in the Civil War. They're just 1,000 miles away. But even still, driving down the road sometimes around here, I see that. And that's something that I think we can all agree that there's weeds within our communities that we want to work to mitigate, to pull. And that's not necessarily something that can be done in a day. Sometimes the weeds win. But it's something that we can feel that we can make meaningful progress on, that we can have diligent effort and move forward, believing that we can make a difference and work to make our communities and our country a better place, not just for ourselves, but for our children, for those who are coming after us. There's a poem that I'd like to read to you. For those who are on the board, they know I read a poem every time, pretty much every time, as long as we haven't talked for too long. I remember growing up, we memorized poems. That's just something we did. It's an Idaho thing. But I think, Marty, you've got some poems there too. So poetry is a way that we can, it's like a song, but there's less music involved. This is a poem that I worked to memorize decades ago. I remember being in school trying to memorize this, by Edgar A. Guest. Somebody said it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one that wouldn't say so till he tried. So I buckled right in with a bit of a grin. On his face, if he worried, he hid it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Somebody scoffed, "Oh, you'll never do that. At least no one ever has done it." But he took off his coat, and he took off his hat, and the first thing we knew, he'd begun it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit it, he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just start to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it. Now, I don't know that I have the same level of optimism that Mr. Guest has. There are things that I feel like if I tackled, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. There's a lot of challenges that I don't have the answers to. I don't know how to work through the complex questions that we have. But I do have some level of optimism, some level of hope that we can have meaningful change. We can work to do that. And that's something that I've tried to do in my own life. After I moved here 5 or 6 years ago, I don't really, outside of my in-laws, I don't know a lot of people in this area. And that's why I started coming here. I remember the first day bringing my children. We were meeting at the temporary church down in Canandaigua. And I thought, wow, this is a very beautiful church. It's temporary. This is a beautiful church as well. But it was a little bit of an adventure, something that, I had, at the time, had quite a meaningful change in my spiritual development and perspective at the time. And I didn't know, is this something I'll feel comfortable with? I'm bringing my kids here. I hope this is okay. I hope things work out. And it turned out that it did. And I am pleased to say that I have really enjoyed the last 5 or 6 years that I've been able to spend here within this community. It's something where it takes a little bit of faith, a little bit of effort to move forward with that faith. And then hopefully we see the seeds of that development and growth just like my kids with the little citrus tree that's growing on our windowsill today. And it's exciting as well. Change can be hard, but it's something that you just feel that warmth in your chest, like it's incredible to see and to be a part of that. And I'm excited to be a part of that with you. I'd like to read one more poem for you. This is from Janice Ray. In the seed underground. A seed makes itself, but it needs help. Sometimes it needs a moth, or a wasp, or a gust of wind. Sometimes it needs a farm, or it needs a farmer. It needs a garden and a gardener. It needs you. Seeds have found a way to trick animals into planting them. They taste delicious, and if the seed gets planted inadvertently while I'm eating the apple, that's fine with me. Over the centuries, we've found ways to harness that, and luckily, plants were able to do quite well before people figured out how to plant them. But we can be an instrumental part in that as gardeners. As tools within our communities to not just grow gardens, but also grow thriving communities that can help prepare a world that we can be proud of moving forward. I mentioned that I moved here recently, and I've tried to contribute to this community. It's been a year or so at this point. I'm a part of the Grow Bloomfield group. We're always looking for ways to grow our community, and we've been worried about the declining population in the school. No one's having kids these days. I feel like I've done my part, but it's hard. Kids are expensive, and it's hard outside of that. But we want to think about what happens after we go. Because there's the world keeps spinning and keeps turning, and we want to make sure that these communities are one that we can be proud of. Friends and neighbors, it's been a pleasure talking to you today about my gardening adventures, as well as the application of that to our own lives. I'm sure many of you garden, and I hope that you do. It's definitely something that I treasure, and in spite of the potato bugs and the birds getting at my strawberries, or the rabbits eating the little sprouts as they come up, I feel that I'm always rewarded for that effort. And I know that you will too, not just in your own gardens, your own endeavors there, but also as you move forward with faith to try and develop these communities that we're a part of. And I thank you all for being here and being a part of this community. I cherish the time that I have here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Canandaigua. Yep, go ahead.
Slug by slug, weed by weed, my garden's got me awfully teed. All the insects love to feed upon my tomato plants. Sunburned face, scratched up knees, my kitchen's choked with zucchinis. I'm shopping at the A&P next time I get a chance. Crabgrass grows and the ragweed thrives. My broccoli has long since died. The only things left still alive are some radishes and beans. My carrot plants are long since gone. Hear the rabbits sing a happy song. Until you've weeded all day long, you don't know what boredom means. You get up early and you work till late. Watch the moles and the mice get overweight. They eat their dinners on a plate. late from the hard work you have done. As ye sow ye shall reap, but I smell like a compost heap. I'm gonna get that lousy creep who said gardening was fun. Slug by slug and weed by weed, well, my garden's got me awfully teed. All the insects love to feed upon my tomato plants. Sunburned face, scratched up knees, my kitchen's choked with zucchinis. I'm shopping at Wegmans or Tops or the Mennonite Farm Store or somewhere next time I get a chance. Our closing hymn today is number 64, "Oh, Give Us Pleasure in the Flowers Today." Please rise as you're willing and able and join us to sing.
Please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry in our hearts until we are together again.